it's funny to think what could happen in a year. And they say a week is a long time in politics. Well, just look at the political journey that we've really gone on since the 2019 election of Boris Johnson saying that he had an oven ready deal ready to go. Well, turns out not to be the case at all, because there are sticking points, and as the EU have said from the beginning, they have been very, very clear that we cannot pick and choose what we want from the single market and what we don't have, what we don't want. They've said there will not be a buffet for them to just pick and choose. You either have it all or none at all. And what's the funniest thing is, we went over this. Must have been a good year or maybe two now. But we went over an article, and it was like, hold on, these free market fundamentalists are now seemingly to be charting the course for the Tory party. Yet, the biggest free prize of all is the single market. So why on earth are they so objectionable to this idea? And it all goes back to, of course, regulations. These free market fundamentalists are obsessed with having absolutely zero regulation whatsoever across the board. And it's not just for things like, standards of goods, health and safety practices, stuff like that. It comes down to workers' rights as well. Because I've said before that I really want to try and get a copy of Britannia Unchained. I'm definitely going to try and have to get a copy, because this, I fear, is what is set out for the future of the UK. So I think going forward, it's really going to be important for me to try and get a copy of it, to know and understand essentially what the Tories' plans are for the future, and especially next year, because I can already predict there being another, quote, second manifesto, or a reissuing of the manifesto for the Tory party, what they intend to go doing forward. And of course, we are now looking at huge economic catastrophe. The conservative estimate is about 8%, and that's if we're lucky. Worst case scenario, we're looking at 12% of our GDP lost. That is huge. And again, this is the UK's, and specifically Boris's, fault. Easiest deal in history turned out not to be so. So, before we get into today's article about all over this recent happenings and stuff like that, please do remember to hit that like and share button. Also, down below there are links to my Patreon page as well as a one-off donation link, and thank you very much to the people who do support me that way. So, on with the article, to basically say this from The Guardian. Boris Johnson, no deal Brexit, now a strong possibility. And this is unbelievable. I cannot believe that this is where we are. And this is the type of Brexit no one pushed for at the referendum. No Leave campaigner campaigned for a no-deal Brexit. The election that was fought was not for a no-deal Brexit. Hence, we can officially say this is not the, quote, will of the people when Boris Johnson goes for this. So, anyway, we'll get on with it then. So, Boris Johnson has ordered ministers to prepare for the strong possibility of a no-deal Brexit, warning that the UK risks being locked in the EU's orbit as senior Tories urge him to find an agreement. And he absolutely must, because it doesn't matter that we have recently, yesterday was announced a trade deal with Singapore. Singapore, from what I remember, is not even in our top 15 countries we trade with. I don't even think it's in our top 20. Our top 10 countries we most trade with are the European Union, and the only ones that are not on there are China and the US. Again, if you remove all ideological positions out of this, just economically what we are doing, it just still doesn't make sense. So after a 3-hour summit with the European Commission chief, Ursula von der Leyen, failed to bridge major gaps between them, the Prime Minister said he was prepared to go the extra mile by flying to Paris or Berlin for face-to-face talks with EU leaders. But he said the EU's current offer was unacceptable because the UK could not be treated like its twin. First of all, that is laughable because we are in no way comparable to the EU. We are just not. We are just not a big economy enough to compete with the EU. And we are about to find that out the hard way very, very quickly next year. Anyway, it says, it was put to me that this was a kind of bit like twins, and the UK is one twin and the EU is another. And if the EU decides to have a haircut, then the UK is going to have a haircut or else face punishment. Or if the EU decides to buy an expensive handbag, then the UK also has to buy an expensive handbag too, or face tariffs, he said. Yeah, that's the price if we want access to the single market. And we want access to the single market for our economy. This has been said time and time again, and I said it at the beginning of the video. We will not be allowed to pick and choose what we do not want from the single market. We either have to accept that we give up sovereignty for access, or we don't. And we were very, very happy with that for years, until the Brexiteers came along and said that we do not want any sort of regulation. And then they tried and made the sovereignty argument, and as we've said before, that is complete bunkum when you just look at the Japan deal, which has signed us up to tougher state aid regulations than what the EU is pushing, and also changes our law on privacy regulations. Where are the Brexiteers complaining about Japan being involved in the British economy? Anyway, he went on to say, clearly this is not a sensible way to proceed, and it's unlikely any other free trade deal. It is a way of keeping the UK kind of locked in the EU's regulatory orbit. And it doesn't matter if Boris Johnson goes for a no-deal Brexit. We will still be in the EU's regulatory orbit because all our companies will have to follow EU rules if they want to trade with Europe. It's just the difference is we won't have a say in it. Johnson's language echoed his condemnation of Theresa May's Brexit deal after he resigned as Foreign Secretary in 2018. He told that year's Tory party conference that Britain must not be locked in the tractor beam of Brussels. He added on Thursday, I do not think we need to be very, very clear. There is now a strong possibility that we will have a situation that is much more like an Australian relationship with the EU than a Canadian-style relationship with the EU. Basically, the Australian deal basically means WTO, World Trade Organizational Rules. And the Australia brand is used as a fancy marketing term. So don't be fooled by this. And the other thing, it's funny that they're asking for a Canadian-style relationship. Because if you may remember, just a couple of weeks ago, we went over the fact that they are not advocating for a Canadian-style relationship. This is ultimately ridiculous in the way that they're pushing for this, but there you go. Downing Street and Johnson Downing Street said Johnson had overwhelming cabinet backing for his stance, despite official forecasts suggesting that a no deal would knock an extra 2% off an economy already hit hard by the coronavirus. What I told the Cabinet this evening is to get on and make those preparations. We're not stopping talks, we'll continue to negotiate, but looking at where we are, I do think it is very vital that everyone gets ready for that Australian option, Johnson said. Yeah, no, WTO, let's get this right. The Australian option is Johnson's name for trading on World Trade Organization terms with the EU, meaning tariffs being imposed on a wide range of goods. Meanwhile, lorry queues built up in Kent for the third day in a row, attributed to Brexit stockpiling, COVID vaccine deliveries and Christmas traffic. Heavy congestion is expected over the weekend, with a live test of no-deal contingency plans going into effect. That is going to be funny this weekend. Barriers will have to be put in place to create a contraflow system as part of Operation Brock, Kent's long-term contingency plan for Brexit gridlock. Similar plans, known as Operation Transmission, are being prepared around Portsmouth International Port. Johnson was blunt with his statement, and it came amid warnings from senior Conservatives that the world is watching as Brexit negotiations enter their final phase. Some MPs said they were distressed whether they would use parliamentary tactics to block a no-deal exit. And I hope they do, because this was not what was promised. After Wednesday's evening's dinner between Johnson and Ursula von der Leyen ended in an impasse with a new deadline set for Sunday, Tory MPs have become increasingly concerned that a risk of a no-deal exit on the 1st of January is rising. Tobias Ellwood, the chair of the Defence Committee, said, "The world is watching this. We are being marked for our international prestige, our statecraft, and how we deploy it. And we will lose what we will lose if we lose, it will be huge. And we are going to lose. There was no way of winning of this." He pointed out the security implications of a no-deal exit. There will be economic repercussions, but also security ones. Our channel waters are being buzzed by Russian submarines, our airspace and Russian jets. We need allies. And Europe needs to stand together and work together. This would be us turning the other way, just as we assume the G7 presidency. No, well, that's so hilarious. But remember, this isn't them doing it to us. It is the UK that has decided to do this. Not the EU. It is us that has decided to do this. It is us who are deciding to arbitrarily walk away after Boris Johnson could have extended the transition deal. The transition period, sorry. The European Commission publishes its own no-deal contingency plans on Wednesday, including allowing airlines from the UK to operate flights across its territory and keeping roads open to British hauliers for 6 months, but only if the UK reciprocates. Under the same terms, Brussels will also offer UK fishermen access to its seas and open negotiations over quotas. Johnson's spokesperson agreed to suggest that that would be unacceptable. However, saying, "We would never accept agreements and access to UK waters which are implacable with our own status as an independent coastal state." We've heard all this before, many times trotted out. The former Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, said a no-deal exit would be a failure of statecraft, but he laid the blame on the EU for failing to understand the UK's position. This is not the EU's fault. It is us who are choosing to do this, not them. Anyway, he said, "I still think that Europeans are overestimating the political shape that Boris Johnson has on this." He said, "And I think that's why this is a very perilous situation." Damien Green, chair of the One Nation group of Tory MPs, says, "It has always been in Britain's best interest to leave on friendly terms, with a deal that allows people and trade to flow freely as possible. That is still true, even in these last few days." Again, this is ridiculous, because you hear these people advocating for leaving, and then in that same sentence, he's just made a positive statement for staying in the single market and customs union, and even staying in the EU. We hear this time and time again, even from hardcore Brexiteers. Former Minister Stephen Hammond added, "Ending the year without a free trade agreement would be bad for Britain and the EU. I urge the negotiating teams to find a solution for the benefit of all citizens of Europe." The former cabinet minister, Andrew Mickle, supporter of Johnson's leadership campaign, said it was very vital effort. Every effort was made at this critical juncture. Every sinew must be stretched to secure a deal. Not at any price. The country voted to leave, and we are proud independent nation. But no one should be in any doubt of the economic consequences of proceeding without a deal on the 1st of January next year. The shadow cabinet office minister, Rachel Reeves, castigated the government for failing to get an agreement, urging the Prime Minister to take control of the negotiations and bring back a deal. And there you have it. Very plain, purely and simple. The the worst of all possible Brexit outcomes has now come to pass. And there is now going to be moves by the British government to try and put the blame on the EU. This is not the EU's fault. It is the UK who has decided to leave. It was the UK that, despite ministers saying how important it is to keep, security agreements going, trade going, free movement of goods and people going, refused to stay in the single market and customs union. It is the UK that, despite asking for a Canadian-style agreement, has tried to go above and beyond, asking for more than a Canadian-style agreement. And the EU said from the very beginning that we would not be allowed to do this. It is the UK's fault that we are where we now are now. When Boris Johnson was said, do you want to extend the transition period because of the current crisis around the coronavirus? Johnson said no. This is a mess entirely of the UK's own making. Any attempts by ministers, newspapers, whatever, to make this seem like it's the EU's fault and all this economic damage is their fault, no, it's our fault. It's the UK's fault for this. But we've been saying that from the very beginning. And now we are in a situation, entering a position where no one voted for a no-deal Brexit. That was not on the table at the referendum. The Leave campaign said, and to quote one famous quote, only a fool would leave the single market and the customs union. So here we are at that awful juncture. All these years of pointless negotiating and jingoistic, patriotic nationalism negotiating that has gone nowhere because they refuse to look at just the plain economic situation. The UK needs Europe. And it will be up to future prime ministers to basically put us back in the European Union. And as I said before, I think it's going to be a sliding scale back in. But anyway, thanks for watching. As always, do remember to hit that like and share button. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link. And thank you very much to the people who do support me that way. And of course, tonight I will be doing a live Q&A on Maximilian Robespierre's channel. So please do come and join us for that. It's going to be fun. And of course, on Saturday, we will be having our usual good morning walk. So thank you. Thanks for watching the video. We'll either see you tonight or tomorrow, or we'll see you all very soon for another video.